Hey, welcome to the Lowdown this week. We've got a lot to talk about. There's a lot happening with Chinese fishing vessels. They have a second amphibious barge that has been spotted out doing testing. And we're going to dive into a whole host of other things. As always, if you're not a newsletter subscriber, you can get it free each and every week or so. I won't spam you. Trust me on that. The link is down below. It's absolutely free. So sign up for the Lowdown newsletter and let's jump into this week. All right. Again, I just love, the little graphics, right? Just to symbolize stuff that's really serious, but we turn them into cartoons. So there you go. But China has conducted the second testing batch of the Sukhoi. I'm probably butchering that, so chime in below of actually how you pronounce it. I'm not great with it. But these are the amphibious land bridges that we've seen. And you might ask, like, why would China have such a thing? Well, the hypothesis being that Taiwan is a pretty rocky island. They have stated in multiple ways that Taiwan is part of China and will be reunified with China. When it comes to where can you land things and people on the Taiwanese beachhead, there's not that many. This thing can actually lower a long bridge. It can be offset from the beachhead, i.e. the rocky shores, the shallow water, and you can run men and equipment off other ships that cannot get that close in. There's not that many deep water ports for Taiwan, and to be able to run them onto the beachhead. So again, this is the second beach. It was spotted on January 16th at the Nasan Island in the South China Sea. Again, that imagery was dated on the 16th. Out there doing more tests. This is an 8-leg barge. It has a variety of jack screws where these things can screw down into the ocean bed, level everything out, make it nice and stable again, so you can move heavy equipment onto an island or onto a beachhead for whatever you might want to do. But basically extendable road bridges, and this again is the second variation we have seen. All right, if you're a trivia person, we always have a question in the newsletter. This week is talking about the Su-35. So make sure, if you are a newsletter subscriber, play along with the trivia. Test your knowledge there. And if you're not, you can jump in, you can go online, and you can participate there too and just test it out. So we do have the threat of the day as a Su-35, so there'll be more on that a little bit later on. Our congressional leaders have released an $839 billion compromise defense spending bill for this upcoming year. And this includes funding most notably for the next generation air dominance fighter, that F-47, as well as money that's being thrown back into the Navy's next generation air dominance fighter. The Air Force will call it NGAD and the Navy will call it NJAD. But that's for the Navy's F/A-XX to replace the F-18. We're already thinking about how to get ready for the next fight past the F-35. So this is something that has been turned on, turned off, turned on, turned off, because I think ultimately we don't necessarily know what that next threat might be. We've talked about it on this podcast. We've talked about it on this channel. Building an exquisite piece of technology for a threat today that might not exist in the future, or some kind of defense technology that you need to do a capability answer to a certain threat in the future, needs to be pliable enough and adaptable enough to insert new capabilities and new technologies really quickly to address, again, emerging threats that we might not know what exist yet. And our procurement process is quite long. So this is a complex one that, again, makes it into and out of. Ultimately, we're going to have something. What that ends up shaping up to be, I think we probably can say TBD, despite everything that's transpiring right now. This is another interesting one coming out of China. This is from the New York Times, which on December 25th this past year, they noticed unusual fishing activity that was occurring just east of Shanghai. And it was in an area over 200 miles with 1,400 fishing vessels that maneuvered into a blockade formation, basically going side by side. China has a designation for any type of boat or ship that is created, really anything, needs to have a militarily utility use. So if a boat is built, it needs to have some reinforcement and certain type, and it has to have certain capabilities and meet certain specifications, allowing it to be repurposed for a military type role down the road. So shipbuilding is one of those things, again, that's been a big talking point in the United States, with our capability basically being eviscerated over the last few decades, just non-existent. And then you have China that is pumping out hundreds of boats every single year. Analysts assess that this formation, these were 3 formations, were part of China's Maritime, the People's Militia. a civilian force of vessels that are organized and state-directed for operations. So regional crisis, such as these formations, can be used to congest sea lanes, provide false radar targets, and blur the lines between civilian and military activity. Again, this is something I think people might just skim through the headlines, but when you really take a step back and you look at the scope and scale and the organization that it took to coordinate 2,000 plus ships, civilian, militia ships, however you want to phrase it, it is relatively impressive. Could the United States do this? Maybe, but I don't think the capability currently exists. Again, we got our latest podcast episodes out, one on MH370 with Jeff Wise and the latest with Dr. Anthony Vici, who talks about espionage in the realm of AI and the future there. So if you like that kind of stuff, check it out. Slight departure from military aviation, but I think pretty interesting conversations. All right, this sparked a lot of headlines back in the spring, summertime, when Qatar gave the United States a new Air Force One. President Trump said he was gifted 747s by the Qataris. And this is a stopgap because the Air Force One, and I use that term loosely. Remember, Air Force One is any Air Force aircraft that the president's flying, but specifically we're talking about the VC-25A, the 747s, the iconic jet that everyone has seen. We have two of them. Well, the VC-25 has been under construction for years, and these are repurposed 747s. So under construction, really, it's like retrofitted is a more appropriate term. But these have been hitting constant delays. These things should have already been flying. They should already replace the VC-25As. President Trump fed up with that and went to the Qataris and was gifted 747s. Now they're saying that these interim stopgap 747s will be ready to fly this summer. Now, what does that look like? I don't know, because they're obviously not spilling the beans on what they've done to retrofit these. A lot of concerns popped up, myself included. When you get a plane from another nation and it's supposed to carry your president who has secure comms, all defensive capabilities, etc., there are a lot of places to hide bugs, traps, all sorts of things that can go into this. So you imagine that you'd have to completely gut this plane and then upgrade it to the capability that is warranted for a president to be able to stay connected to defense leaders and across the globe. So I don't know. It's probably gonna be really nice. I don't doubt that. But will it have the same security, the same capability as the current 747s in the fleet? I don't know. But again, the VC-25 is that replacement 747. The two replacement 747s have just been plagued with delays and cost overruns. And I think the last time I saw, they're not slated to be operational until 2028 when they were supposed to be operational at 2024. So again, I imagine this thing is not going to be a full up round. Definitely will be nice. All right, from the snapshot, these are just a couple quick highlights of stuff that's going on I think you might find interesting. Air Force One did actually make an emergency return with President Trump on board this past week as he was heading to Davos. Said it was an electrical malfunction. You know, again, precautionary, but he ended up going over on the 757 to Davos there. A lot of talk around Greenland. You know, that's a whole nother conversation in of itself, but NORAD is deploying more military aircraft to NORAD, the Pitkuff, man, I'm butchering that one, the space base there. You know, the United States, we obviously have forces in there. It's a province or under the Kingdom of Denmark, you know, and again, I'm probably butchering that, right? But this has been an interesting development. We'll see how this one plays out. Obviously, Greenland is very strategic. You know, when you look at a map and you think it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, you got to go north, and on the other side of the circle there, the sphere, happens to be Russia. So we'll see how this one plays out, but we are putting more fighters up in Greenland. And again, we'll see how this one plays out. We have new leaders for the Golden Dome. This is, again, something President Trump announced, the missile defense protective spear that's going to go over our nation. We'll have to watch. This is going to be expensive. We have the Missile Defense Agency, again, shooting a missile going Mach 12 plus, re-entering the atmosphere with various reentry vehicles. That's a complex mission problem to solve. That's a lot of math that's involved there. The Justice Department has seized 2 mobile mission crew trainers. This is allegedly built for a test flying academy in South Africa. U.S. origin software and NATO-derived data was unlawfully exported, and China has been using this to support the People's Liberation Army's early airborne warning, anti-submarine warfare training, etc. You might remember, I can't remember the Marine's name, former Marine's name. He got wrapped up with training Chinese through South Africa and then into Beijing, giving away secrets for naval operations, etc. Seems like South Africa is a point where the PLA or the Chinese have gotten into, and for whatever reason, companies are doing business with. So I guess 10 out of 10 would not recommend. Anduril, this is another one. It just keeps popping up with the news. It just keeps growing. They're expanding their Southern California plant, their Long Beach factory, scaling production with engineering, doing more autonomous defense drone systems. I think we're only going to continue more coming out of Anduril in the future there. Threat of the day is a Su-35 flanker. If you're curious and checking it out, check out the newsletter where we break down a threat of the day each and every newsletter so you can self-learn yourself about the various threats that are out there. Fun fact for me, I actually did get to see this one fly and got an up-close and personal tour of the static of the Su-35 at the Dubai Air Show in 2017. It is impressive to see the thrust vectoring. That thing is very maneuverable. It is rather large, though. You can see it for a year away, roughly. All right, that is the lowdown for this week. Make sure you click the link down below, grab the newsletter. It's absolutely free. Again, I won't spam you, and we'll see you next week.